Good evening. You're watching CU at USC. I'm your host, Daniel DiMaso, and tonight we have LA City Councilman David Ryu with us. Stick around. Welcome back to CU. Again, we have David Ryu with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So I was trying to do some research on you earlier today, and you don't have the most robust Wikipedia page. So I was just kind of wondering if you could just give me a little, like, where'd you grow up? What got you interested in politics in the first place? But
no, I've been in office for only 19 months now,
Right.
and I guess it's kind of a blessing and a curse that my Wikipedia page is very short.
Right.
At least it doesn't have negative things.
Yeah, that's great.
But I'm pretty much, I want to say, born and raised in Los Angeles
Okay.
because all I know is Los Angeles. But I am an immigrant. I did come when I was 6 years old.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember anything before 6 years old, so
Right.
all I remember is LA and growing up here. But
And that was from Korea, correct?
yes, I
Okay.
immigrated from South Korea at the age of 6.
Wow. And so you moved straight to LA, straight into like public elementary schools and things like that. All sort of education was here.
Yes, typical immigrant family story. I mean, it was, my mom was a nurse, which enabled her to immigrate here. My father was a teacher. We
Okay.
struggled. I lived literally, it's one of those areas that doesn't have a name. A little south of Hollywood.
I see,
A little
okay.
north of Koreatown. There was about 6 of us in the family. I have a younger brother, a younger sister, my grandmother who also immigrated to help take care of us
Sure.
while both my parents worked 2-3 jobs.
Yeah.
We lived in a little 2-bedroom, 700 square foot apartment, but priority, especially my father being a teacher, education was a top priority.
Right,
So I got to
right.
go to all the best public schools.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to say education in both of those fields. Did they push a lot of like reading and academics on you? Did you play sports and things like that too? What were sort of your passions at a young age?
You know, when I was younger, it was just my father being a stern teacher, not just a teacher, a stern teacher, just wanted me to read, which of course as a young kid, you hate. Because if they tell you to do something,
You want to do the
you want to do the exact
right?
opposite. So it wasn't a particular subject that they pushed. It was just more about reading and just do good in school. Sports wasn't much of a priority. It was more about studying. However, being more like a latchkey kid when my parents weren't home, when I was younger, I bicycled a lot.
Okay.
And then when I got a little bit older, I skateboarded.
Ah, okay.
So
Typical LA kid, right?
I'm one
Yeah.
of those rebellious kids skateboarding. So, we thought we were cool. So, playing sports was the uncool thing to do.
Oh, I
So
see.
I just
Okay.
skateboarded when I was in junior high and high school.
Oh, excellent. So you get to high school, immigrant at the age of 6, not really doing sports, more of doing like the sort of outside the school kind of thing after school. When did your interest in like politics start to shine through?
I had zero interest in politics.
Okay.
And actually, in high school, I wanted to do sports, but because as an immigrant family, and you could talk to any immigrants, whether they're from Asia or from Mexico or Armenia, I thought I had to be a doctor. I had no choice. My parents told me the only profession
Right.
you could be in life was a doctor. Therefore, I went to the first magnet school named after a Latino and for health sciences, Francisco Bravo Medical and Health Professions Magnet.
Okay.
We had amazing science classes. We got to do research at the USC Medical Center,
Wow.
Doheny Eye Institute, but we had no field. So we had no sports teams. We had track.
Okay.
I mean, no, not even track. I'm sorry. We had cross country.
Cross country, where you would bus somewhere else and run.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So which is why, again, that wasn't necessarily a career field, but I did go to. I am proud to say this, but I'll just say it really quickly.
Don't.
I did
Go ahead.
I went to UCLA for undergrad,
Right.
pre-med major biology, but I did come to do a
excellent.
fellowship later on here at USC.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yes. And going in to college, all I did was science and math courses. And then, but I did have a large interest and affinity in social services. So at college is where it opened up my horizons.
Right.
I got involved with various nonprofit groups, various clubs. I did the Prison Coalition, where we actually bussed out to one of the local youth detention centers where we gave tutoring. So that's when my social service, my social advocacy side started to awaken. Right. And that's where I got interested in advocacy, immigration rights, working in that arena. And I told my parents I don't want to be a doctor anymore. Yeah. And I wanted to become a social worker.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like even from a pretty young age, at the age of 20, you wanted to give back, you wanted to serve. Do you think any of that comes from like your mom being a nurse and is always trying to help other people? Did she sort of instill some of that in you?
Actually, yes. And my parents were, you know, we toiled this much for you to have a better life. Why in the world do you want to be a social worker? I mean, they said it's a noble profession, but you're not going to make any money. And I said, well, it's actually your fault, because I think about it. Even though we grew up poor and life was difficult, I remember the very few things I remember when I was a child was at the age, I don't know, I was 10 or 11 years old, and I remember my parents taking me to Denny's to give a scholarship to a local student who attended LACC.
Interesting.
I don't know where they met, how they met, or what the circumstance was, and I'm sure it wasn't that much money. Yeah. But my parents made it a point to show me that you have to help. So I point that out to them, and they're kind of upset. They're like, oh, they were trying to teach me to be good, but at the same time, they're like, we overdid it. But so I think, yes, my social activism comes from seeing my parents struggle, seeing my friends, my neighbors' parents struggle, and the need to do good.
Sure. So did you then pursue social work for a while? What, how did your career in that sort of unfold?
I did. I pursued social work. I changed my major several times. I ended up graduating, and I started working for local advocacy nonprofits on immigration rights, citizenship assistance. And I started working in nonprofits. Then I wanted to do something bigger, larger. And I wanted to go work in, it's funny, even though I grew up poor, I wanted to help the poor. Yeah. But my definition of poor, because I grew up in the 80s, so it's a little long time ago, but in the 80s, the image of poor was, back then, Ethiopia was going through a severe drought. And there was, Hands Across America, We Are the World, where Michael Jackson and everyone.
Live Aid, I'm sure.
Live Aid, yes. So I envision to help the poor, you have to go to halfway across the world and go to Sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
And I was gearing up to sign up for the Peace Corps. Sure. To go to Peace Corps. And during that process, I found the graduate school program, and I went to a graduate program. Okay. And while I went to graduate school working in local nonprofits, I realized you don't have to go halfway across the world to help the poor.
Right. There's a lot of poor here.
There's plenty right around the corner. And that's kind of how it started to guide me towards politics.
Sure. So when that decision came to sort of step away from like the advocacy groups and move at the forefront of politics and making policy and legislation, was that a decision that you were making for yourself, or did someone sort of say like, hey, David, you should check this out and you should run, should get yourself involved in office?
It was a mistake, actually. I fell into politics by accident because I was working in nonprofits. I was getting ready to go to Peace Corps. I went to graduate school at Rutgers. Was in the East. I got to do a graduate internship at the United Nations. I worked on like conflict diamond, blood diamond issues. So I worked on more on the advocacy and actually protesting the government. So when I came back to LA, and I was about 27, and I had a large college debt, loans. I said, I better go get a real job. But when I circulated my resume, the funniest thing happened where a local elected official gave me a call and said, do you want to come and work for me?
Okay.
And my initial reaction was no, because you guys are
all man.
Because you guys are bad, you're corrupt, you don't do anything.
I imagine you was like with long hair and maybe a beanie at this time, carrying around your longboard.
Well, back then it was, I don't want to say. Something like that. Something like that. And I was like, no, because you're the person I'm supposed to protest.
Right.
then I took a step back and I said, you know what? It's easy to point the finger and say, bad, bad, bad. You're not doing anything.
Okay.
I said, I'll refrain from getting a permanent job for 2 years, go work in government, go work for an elected official for 2 years, learn how the system works, because honestly, I wanted to come back out and protest it better.
If you can learn how it works, you can fight it better.
And I could say I speak from experience and authority.
Yeah.
I've been there, and they really don't do anything.
Yeah. You could say you gave them an honest shot. You try to see what
There
they're
you
all
go.
about. Right.
There you go. And that changed my complete life. I was so fortunate. I was so lucky. I got to work for the legendary LA County Supervisor Yvonne Burke.
Okay. Wow.
And who is an alma mater, is one of your Hall of Fame alma maters here at USC. You know, first in many things. And honestly, I really didn't. I mean, I read about her, but I didn't really know who she was, exactly what the Board of Supervisors for the County of LA did. But I got to work on HIV/AIDS issues, alcohol, drugs, homelessness, foster children, senior services.
You started to see the good that the government does.
And I realized, holy cow, is this what you do here? You know, sign me up.
Yeah.
You know, and because it turns out when elected officials do something good, no one really reports on it. That's what you're supposed to do.
Sure, sure.
Now, if you do something wrong, you know, it's front page news.
Of course.
And that's what sells papers.
Yeah.
So, which is why, but more importantly, I learned that elected officials are the ones who actually, if they have the will to do something, they have the resources and the ability to get it done.
Did your early experience when you were still maybe a little skeptical of the government, was there any like defining experience that sort of changed the way you looked at how the government operates, or gave you that newfound perspective to appreciate what they do?
Well, yeah, definitely many things. I mean, I worked on immigration reform, and I remember citizenship applications tripling, quadrupling overnight, and you know, and for many immigrant families who couldn't afford to. But more importantly, one monumental impact in my life, and actually, I didn't realize it immediately when it happened. I learned it more several years later when I went to college and actually took courses and started working in the community, and that was the LA riots. And which is right around the corner for us. April 29th, it's the 25th anniversary. Yeah. And during the LA riots, I was, I believe, 11th grade.
Okay.
So, and I lived in the affected areas. And I knew something was going on, and it meant a tremendous amount. And as a Korean American, it also affected my community tremendously. Sure. And I knew it was a monumental event. But it wasn't until later when I got into college where it actually sunk in and what that meant. Sure. And that was about having representation. It's about having a voice, because this is our country's an America for all Americans. Right. And it was important, and that was kind of an awakening as well.
I know you had talked about maybe exploring options to help out overseas and things like that. When you finally decided against that, was it important for you to stay in LA, sort of where you were raised, and give back to that community?
Yeah, you know, I was very confused at that point, because my dream job was the United Nations. Wow. Because I want to save the world.
Yeah, of course.
Where do you go to save the world? The United Nations. Right. And when I worked there, I was at New York, and I had an offer to go to Geneva as well, but it was very expensive. Sure. But I was a little disappointed. And it helped reinforce how I thought of government as too big of a bureaucracy, because the United Nations is, I mean, very, very bureaucratic. If you think the U.S. government is slow, the United Nations is even slower, and it really shattered my image of what the UN was. Right. So, and I got to actually work for the most exciting branch, which was the OCHA, Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, which was the frontline agency, whether there's war or a natural disaster. This was the first agency that went on the ground. Okay. To coordinate all the aid. Sure. So once in a while when a helicopter crashes, it's the people from this division who are on the ground. And even then it was not as exciting or fulfilling or fast. Yeah. So when I decided not to do the United Nations, I was, what am I going to do? Yeah. And that's when I came back, and I was trying to reassess my life when the opportunity to work for a local elected official.
Well, we're glad to have you back. We have to go to commercial right now. Stay tuned for more See You at USC right after this break. welcome back to CU. Again, we're here with LA City Councilman David Ryu. Thank you for coming back. It's the first time we were talking about how you kind of got to where you are now. Before you came in, we were talking about CSAs in Los Angeles. Do you want to explain a little more about what that's about?
Sure, it's something I'm very, very proud of and excited about.
Yeah.
And CSA stands for Children's Savings Accounts.
Right.
And we haven't done it here yet at the City of LA.
Okay.
Actually, it's a proven model and a program that's been done in other cities, other states, but we would be the first large urban city to implement this program. Actually, several nonprofits like the YMCA and YPI are already instituting it. And basically what it is it states that if you create a savings account for college for a child in the first grade, it exponentially increases their graduation rates and potentially college acceptance rates. And especially for lower income families.
Yeah.
Because not only does it create a savings component to pay for college, but it starts the discussion in families. Like, for example, I mean, one of the main reasons I went to college is because my parents expected me to go to college.
Right.
And I'm sure it was like that in your family as well.
Yeah.
So, but in many lower income families, there's no expectation, and in many families where the child is the first one to go to college ever in their family, there is no expectation to go to college.
Or they haven't been there and they don't know how to approach it, even if they wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah. And if the child and what happens is it forces that discussion, right? And it makes the parent talk to the child gets interested, and then the parents might be scared of, oh my gosh, how am I going to afford college? And then they realize there are lots of financial aid out there. There's scholarships, and which they never knew about. So just by merely creating that discussion, I mean, besides all the ancillary benefits of learning finance and banking, arithmetic, I mean, all sorts of other programs that could be associated with it, it greatly, vastly increases.
So tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. So at age of like 5, 6, is it you're encouraging families to open up a savings account with about $50 in there and then compound that up until the time they graduate high school?
Yes.
Okay. So
the program the goal is we want every child in Los Angeles to have a children's savings account.
Okay.
So we're going to try to roll out a pilot program possibly in several schools or for all first graders.
Okay.
So if we started a $50 savings account for all first graders, then when they become the second grade, the first graders, again, we give them all children's savings accounts at $50.
Okay.
We're trying to create a finance.
And this is government funded, or?
And that's where we're trying to look into the government financing. So we're looking at possibly like a $3.5 million program with administrative costs.
Yeah, that's excellent.
It's about 75,000 students per grade in the first grade. And a $50 savings accounts for them with administration costs, we're looking at about $3.5 million. I think I'm willing to ask the City of LA to fund the first year, but we're also looking at to a longer term, some sort of foundation to fund it.
Right.
And there has been tremendous interest from the county to every single foundation and nonprofits who are very excited about this program because, like I said, this is already proven. It's being done now, and it particularly helps lower income families. And LAUSD in Los Angeles has the largest percentage of below poverty line students in the nation.
Wow.
So if not here, where else?
Yeah, it's got tremendous impact for
and
sure.
The state's interested. Everyone is very excited, very interested in this. We thought it was going to be maybe difficult to push in the beginning. So we're looking at different financing options. It looks like we could even have this all privately funded. By creating some sort of foundation where we put the money in.
Sure. Now, is it that every year of school there's another $50 added by LA, or is it the family's responsibility then to upkeep that account?
So this is the beauty of the program. So we start them off with $50, $100.
Okay.
Now, there are so many institutions that wants to get involved.
Right.
Banks, other programs. Even we had the American Beverage Association say we want to educate kids on sugary drinks.
Okay.
So you could have matching, and there's nonprofits or other government entities like the state that will say, we'll match you up to the first $500. You put in $500, we'll put in $500.
Oh, that's excellent.
And then you'll have other banks that do the same matching programs.
Right.
So this is an opportunity to teach our children about banking and all sorts of other entities, and all these outside groups are willing to put money into your savings account if you read 10 books. You know, if you do this,
yeah.
I mean, there's so many mechanisms,
Yeah.
positive mechanisms, and obviously this money could only be withdrawn and used on the 12th grade year. So if you think about it, we don't necessarily need $3.5 million in the first year because no one is cashing these funds.
Right, they can't. Right.
They can't till you graduate and go to college. So, and we'll have, of course, we'll have safeguard mechanisms where if they move out of state, they could, of course, take the money that they put in, like any traditional savings account, but the money that we put in, we get back, right? So it promotes savings, it promotes education, and the money that we put into like a foundation could earn interest, and eventually, if we had like $100 million fund, just the interest generated from that fund could fund the next year.
Right. So I don't know about this. I don't know how much you know about the statistics of the program over that 12 years. But how much can a child expect to have in that account when they graduate from high school? On average.
It will be like any other savings account.
Yeah, it's definitely going to vary by how much.
Yes,
puts in, but.
And again, other cities and states have put in different amounts, and it could put. We could have different programs, different foundations give scholarships that go directly to children's savings accounts. But we would hope by the time they graduate high school, it'd be in the several thousands.
Okay.
And so.
When can we start to see this program taking shape in LA?
We've started to take shape.
Oh, wow.
I'm working closely with the LAUSD.
Okay.
The school board president, Steve Zimmer, has been a tremendous partner. And we've been working collaboratively hand in hand with all the city departments and the school departments. There's lots of legalese that needs to be worked out. Yeah. This is not a new idea. I want to make that clear. Yeah. It's been done in other states and other cities. Yeah. Even actually our own Mayor Eric Garcetti, when he was a council member, started to initiate the same project. So now that he's mayor, I don't have to sell it to him. He already agrees.
Exactly.
So I have the mayor's support, and this has just been moving along. But we hope to kick off some sort of pilot project, hopefully in the next year.
That's going to help out countless students in the LA area. And then you just opened up some new transportation up at Griffith. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a long time coming. We had, unfortunately, 8-month delay because we got sued. We're a very litigious city, and everybody has the right to sue. But
there's La La Land. They were filming up there.
And thinking about La La Land, actually, the circulation plan that you're referencing is, we just did a big press conference a couple of weeks ago because it's the Griffith Park circulation plan. Because the observatory, made famous. Well, it was already famous before La La Land. Yeah. But everybody loves our parks. Everybody loves Griffith Park, the observatory. I mean,
it's so iconic.
If you go on a weekend, you get stuck in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
So we were trying to figure out a way. This is our public park. This is a place of refuge for everyone in the city of LA, just to get away. Yeah. No matter who you are. Whether you're rich or poor, whether you're from San Pedro or Brentwood, this is your, or for that matter, from Asia or Europe.
Right.
This is a park for everyone to enjoy. Yeah. And unfortunately, everyone does enjoy it. and so we've been working on a circulation plan for the past 3 years.
Okay.
And we made like a one-way. We did some free parking in the bottom, some paid parking on top, so we could improve the flow, so we could have more people enjoy the park. And it took literally 3 years to get here, and we finally kicked it off, and that's a very huge success for the city of LA, the tourists, the residents, for anyone who wants to enjoy.
Now, is there something, some sort of public transportation that still takes them to the top, or things like that, for elderly citizens or something that want to get up to the observatory, or just on that lookout place?
Yes.
Okay.
So there is, so at the top and on the hills going towards the observatory will be paid meter parking now.
Okay.
But there will be a free parking lot at the Greek Theater. And this is phase one. We hope to later expand to include the LA Zoo, Travel Town, the golf courses. But we have a dash bus route that's going to connect the metro station on Vermont and in Los Feliz, Vermont and Sunset, to Griffith Park, where the dash could come up. Great. And we'll have free shuttles from the Greek. So if you go to the Greek Theater, park there for free, you could take a free shuttle to take you to the observatory. Oh, okay. If you want to park right next to the observatory with your own car, then you have to pay.
Just pay a little bit.
Yeah, pay a little bit. And so that's phase one.
Right. As any LA resident knows, the traffic is always a problem. So anything we can do to
Yes.
expedite that process.
Oh, and I just
is
want to let
excellent.
everyone know it's free in the mornings.
Oh, okay.
Up to 10 a.m. in weekdays, I believe, and 12 noon on weekends.
Right.
So for all the hikers, because obviously there's a lot more relief, and you know.
As we're coming down to sort of our final minutes here, I want to just ask you if you have any sort of words of wisdom, any advice that you want to give out to our audience of typically college students in terms of getting active, involved, voting, anything like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just actually like to give that message to get engaged, get involved, vote. I mean, voting is your fundamental right, and it is your duty to civically participate. I mean, if you don't like anything, if you want to complain about traffic, about trash, about anything, then you have to be heard,
Get out and
vote.
vote.
And the thing is, and get engaged, whether you're voting, running for office, or getting involved with a nonprofit, whether you want to save the whales or save the trees, get engaged. If you see a problem, don't complain about it. Step up and fix it.
Do something
If
about
you
it.
don't do it, no one else is.
All right, excellent. That is all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been watching CU at USC. Again, this was LA Councilman David Ryu. Thank you for coming on. I'm your host, Daniel DiMaso. Catch us weeknights at 6:30 on Trojan Vision. Have a good night.
Thank you guys for joining us on today's first episode of